The main Iranian scholars of Zoroastrianism and the Jewish studies scholars of the Talmud and the Midrash lived together in Ctesiphon in the Sasanian period, in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th centuries. They even lived on the same street and sometimes even in the same house. So they had similar interests and they saw one another every day, and they presumably talked together and discussed these issues. And therefore we can see in the texts that have survived from this period, which were written down much later, both the Talmud and the Sasanian texts, we can see similar concerns, we can see how they deal with them in similar ways, and we can occasionally see that there may have been mutual influence on the way they thought about these problems and the way they solved them. So this is one of the main reasons why it is important. The more technical reason is that the writing styles are very similar. The texts are very difficult to read, but the Jewish texts have been studied for much, much longer than the Sasanian texts have. And by looking at the way how Jewish scholars have determined the style of these old texts to work, we can apply the same principles to the Sasanian text, the Pahlavi text, and we can sort of recover the meaning of texts which otherwise would be incomprehensible.
Okay, my next question has to do with the influence of Zoroastrianism on Judaism. Could you expand on that?
It's a tricky question, but the Jews were under parts of the Iranian Empire, as you know, from the beginning of the Achaemenids, and the Jews, at least, that lived closer to Iran itself, must have been aware of the Iranian religion. We have numerous documents from an Aramaic community in the Nile that you may have heard about, a community called Elephantini, with letters between the Jews and the Achaemenid king, which shows that they were well familiar with Iranian beliefs. The problem with assigning influences to early Judaism are several, and I cannot go into detail, but in one sense, the possibility of Zoroastrian influence on Judaism has been applied only to the more problematic parts of Judaism, such as Satan and bad things. So whatever they didn't like in Judaism, they ascribed to Zoroastrianism, which is not very good methodology. It's an issue which has not been really studied very intensively. There are numerous articles about it, but it is something which should be taken up again in the new atmosphere of sort of collegiality between Jewish and Zoroastrian scholars.